Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Dave DuFour is in the building. I'm pointing the wrong way, but Dave DuFour is in the building. I'm back wearing a hat, obviously to rep the hometown. You got to rep Pittsburgh. Even though I live in Melbourne, in a beautiful country in Australia, you got to rep Pittsburgh, baby. You got to rep the hometown. But the reason I'm wearing a hat, unfortunately, and I know people who are listening to this on the podcast feed won't be able to see it, my head, I went golfing and I am slowly but surely joining you in what will be the bald brethren, Dave.
You made a rookie move, didn't
I
you?
did not put sunscreen on my scalp. So right now my scalp is peeling and it is a bit gross. So you guys get Hat Sam probably for one more episode. Dave, what's going on?
I started shaving my head when I was pretty young. I think I was like, I used to do a buzz cut as a kid. First time I ever used like a razor, I think it was like 12 or 13. And I spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid. I went on a canoeing trip down basically the entirety of the James River in Virginia. And one day forgot to wear sunscreen. And I wouldn't surprise me if I had just gotten sun cancer or skin cancer that day. It was that bad of a sunburn. It was awful. I've never made that mistake again. You got to keep that sunscreen on you, man.
Yeah,
especially down there.
Like I'm typically so good about it. Literally, I put so much sunscreen on my face that day that like my forehead broke out in like, pimples and shit like that because my pores were so clogged that I had never had to do the top of the head before because my hair thinning is getting aggressively bad. I know.
Get a Harry's Razor sponsorship for the pod. Get them to hook you up and just come on home. Grow the beard out.
We're closing.
Balance it out.
We're closing in on that point, Dave. It's a bit of a struggle in the times here over in Australia, but it's not a struggle for the teams we're going to talk about today. We're going to dive into the NBA Contender picture for the 2023 title. I think that we're going to lay it out as kind of a tiers kind of thing. We're going to talk about I think there's one team, maybe two that you can say is a top tier contender. And then there are a bunch of others that I think are right in that mix. And then there are a few others that I think have an outside shot if things really break right to be able to get into that NBA title picture. So that's kind of the way we're going to lay this out. And I'm not allowed to say who gave me this idea because his account is protected, but it was a tweet by a mutual friend that said something along the lines of, there are currently two teams that can win the NBA title. And it's someone really smart and it's someone that I really enjoy. He has a protected account, so I don't want to say who it is, but I think that it is an important conversation to have 1/3 of the way through the season. But before we dive in, I just want to say, Dave, everything going well here for you?
Yeah. We're almost to Christmas, so the games are about to start mattering, I guess. I don't know how this works every year. I think the basketball this year has been interesting from a parity perspective, so that's been fun. We just got the game of the year for my money last night, Portland and Denver. That shit was fun. I had a really good time. So I don't know, man.
So you're saying I should catch up on this?
Oh, yes. I
did not watch that game last night.
So pick it up around the 3-minute mark, right after the use it or lose it timeout. 2:59. Okay. I believe Denver inbounds the ball. And then it's one of the most fun 3-minute stretches of basketball that we've had all season. It was great. And it was big shot after big shot. It was stars doing their thing. Dame Lillard. We got Dame time. And then we also got Murray time. So you gotta check it out.
I will say I did see the Jamal Murray step back going to his left. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this guy is just unbelievable. He might be back at this point.
There was a step back down the stretch, a little step back fadeaway on the baseline. And that I said the exact same thing. I was like, oh, he's feeling better.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Nuggets within this conversation because I think they're in a really, really interesting place. But I think we have to start, if we're going to break down who the number one contender is in the NBA, I think it's just abundantly clear who the best team is right now. It is the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics, I think, are just very clearly the top team. If the playoffs happened right now, I think they would be pretty damn close to an even odds title contender. I think that it would be like plus 110, plus 115. You can't do it like that going forward because you never know with injuries. You never know with trades that could happen. Player movement will occur around the trade deadline. But I genuinely think that if the playoffs were held today, the Boston Celtics would be the clear, unequivocal favorite to win the NBA title.
I agree with that. Sounds right. The offense that they're putting up right now is pretty ridiculous. You have to score 130 points if you're going to beat the Boston Celtics. And I just don't know that any other team could do that 4 times. Yeah. And especially since they're going to be stronger by the time the playoffs actually do start. Rob Williams is apparently rounding into form, hoping he's going to be healthy by Christmas. That Christmas Day game against the Bucks, that's the Eastern Conference to me. Like that's the preview of the Eastern Conference Finals. And those are the 2 teams that our mutual friend was talking about. I'm assuming Milwaukee.
I've talked to them and they were.
Yeah. And so I'm in complete agreement with you guys that conference finals is going to be our real finals. Now, this doesn't mean that they're definitely going to beat the Western Conference team, because if it's the Warriors and the Warriors are clicking in the way that they do, the Warriors can beat anybody. But those 2 teams right now, they're playing some of the best basketball of anybody, and they're getting healthy. They've already been doing what they're doing, and they're getting healthier. I mean, Chris Middleton, while I don't think he doesn't look fully up to speed, his feel is there immediately. Like he came in and I think he's had multiple games with like 6 assists. You know, they're running the offense through him. He's finding guys, letting it come to him. What a luxury that the Bucks have that they're able to do that. Let him take his time to get reacclimated. And Boston's going to have the same opportunity with Rob Williams, especially because of how Al Horford has still looked pretty good, and they've rested him pretty well without Rob Williams. I was worried about his workload, but Cornette has given them serviceable backup minutes, and even sliding Tatum up to play some 5 here and there. We're all on the same page here. I mean, we're all watching the same stuff. It's nice that we're all seeing the same stuff too.
I totally agree. The Celtics right now, they have the best mix of everything that you look for from a contender. I think they have the defense, which is versatile and is in many ways something that you can really, really scheme. They have the ability to go small and play guys like Tatum and Grant Williams at the 4-5 combo, right? Have Grant deal with the bigger guys, have Jason fly around and help where he's so impactful, right? Defensively. They have good on-ball defenders. Marcus Smart. I think Jaylen Brown's a good on-ball defender. He falls asleep from time to time off the ball, but I think Jaylen is certainly a guy that is someone that is very valuable in a playoff setting because he's 6'7", athletic, and cares on the ball defensively. They're going to get back Robert Williams. They can go super big. They can go regular big if you play one of Rob Williams or Al Horford. They can go super big, which is something they did in the playoffs last year by playing Al Horford and Rob Williams together, which is honestly their preferred alignment. They have guys now like Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon who can really, really guard on the perimeter. It's just across the board. The Boston Celtics have so much lineup versatility. They have so many different ways they can beat you. And that's before we get to the offense. Like, this is a top 11 defense right now without one of the 10 best defenders in the NBA and Robert Williams. They're only going to get way better on that end. The offense right now is the number 1 offense in league history by any metric you look at. They have figured out the spacing. They have figured out everything around Jason Tatum. They've built this entire operation around Jason Tatum using Jaylen Brown as like a second side creator and transition dynamic player. They have fostered so much shooting around these guys. Sam Hauser playing a critical role now. Derek White having really improved his shot. Malcolm Brogdon being able to come in and take second side opportunities. Marcus Smart really moving into that point guard role in a way that has been so important for them. I struggle. I don't think this team is unbeatable, and we'll talk about that maybe as we get into some of the other contenders, but like, they have so many different ways to adjust to what other teams are going to present them. And because they force opposing teams into oceans and oceans of space, it is exceptionally difficult to guard them. And that's even before the most important part of this, which is that Jason Tatum would be the first third of the season MVP, because that's how well he's playing right now. So this Celtics team is just ridiculously good, I think.
Yeah. They've got some, and we talked about them on Nerd this week. Like we did a kind of a whole segment on them where we talked about, are they peaking too early? Because remember last year they started off so rough, and I actually don't think they do. They're actually running an offense this year, and this is what it looks like when you have good players and a good system. They were doing it the hard way up until this season, and now we know what this is a top 5 defense when Rob Williams comes back. Like
I think so too.
And they can defend you any way you want. They can drop, they can switch, they can do it all. And you mentioned the versatility that they've got with their guards, especially with Derek White and Brogdon coming off the bench. And they can go 3 guards and still play Tatum and Brown because of their size. And Tatum has been the MVP for the first third of the season. No doubt to me. I actually had him on my list of guys who could potentially get Defensive Player of the Year buzz this season coming into the year. I don't think so at this point. If Rob Williams had been healthy, I think that maybe we could be talking about Jason Tatum there, but the defense hasn't been as good. So they've basically got everything. What I need to see from them is some close games, and that's not their fault. But it's not their fault, but I need to see what they do in close games. Because the last few years, man, close games, they take the air out of the ball. They stop running offense. It goes to the ISO, taking turns, dribble, maybe make a move. And I think one of the big things that come out of this early part of the season is that they're crushing the shit out of everybody, which rules. That's great for them. Jason Tatum gives the ball up and moves. He's such a good screener. Who knew he had this in his game? And so, I see this stuff. I want to make sure these are principles that they're going to stick with when it comes to sticking time. Like when it's time to all right, man, we're going to get tight. Are we going to ruin our flow, or are we going to keep doing what we've been successful with? That's what good teams do, man. They stick with what works. They have the system do the work for them, especially when they're tired. So I just need to see them in some close games. And that's, hell, maybe they win a title without ever playing a close game.
Yeah. Like you mentioned this idea that this team could be early in the season, they struggled. Maybe they're peaking early. I don't think they're peaking early. I think they've just continued to peak since late last season or the middle of last season, right? Like they just keep getting better and better and better. And obviously it's not quite linear because, taking Joe Mazzulla, him getting the job over Ime Udoka because of Ime Udoka's indiscretions, let's go with, that has created a bit of a rift where people had some questions about what the Celtics could be. But all Joe Mazzulla has done is just implement this offense that is super well spaced, that is causing so many issues, and just giving Jason Tatum oceans and oceans of space to go down on the block and to go ahead and take advantage of those mismatches. Or when he gets into the mid-range, to be able to hit that little floater in the mid-range where he has really, really improved there. It's just wild.
Let me ask you, because I said this on the show this week. You get any 2013-14 Spurs vibes from this team? I'll just say 2014 Spurs, since that's when they won the title. Coming back after losing to Miami, it was kind of heartbreaking. And Boston they got beat by the Warriors, but it was a heartbreaking loss. They came back the next year and they just looked more locked in. And saying that about the Spurs is saying something. Feels that same way here. And they are actually running Joe Mazzulla's offense.
Yeah.
So whatever steps we thought they were going to take back with the coaching change, non-existent. They're actually playing basketball on the offensive end now. So maybe it was an upgrade. I have no idea. Because I think coaching is a little bit overrated, but we know they didn't run offense last year, and this year they are. So I'll just say he's doing a better job. So I've been really impressed with him as a coach. Seems super solid. Even just has these guys playing together, playing connected, and playing for each other, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that 2014 Spurs comparison, like totally different teams, right? Like that was the team that like completely spread the wealth, right? Whereas this team has like Jason Tatum,
Right.
who is like doing an MVP turn. Mm-hmm. That was what Kawhi's second year maybe, and mm-hmm. Tony Parker like led the team with, I'm looking here, it says like 17 points a game, mm-hmm. and they had just like a bunch of double-digit scorers, bunch of guys that were super unselfish. It kind of does feel that way in terms of the way that they have taken the momentum they built the year before and just run with it and gotten way, way better. I mean, that team won 62 games and 8.1 net rating. I would imagine that the Celtics are right on pace for, 60 wins, and they have an 8.8 net rating. So I think that that's a pretty good comparison in terms of where we are. This is the title favorite. Look, if we're nitpicking and saying like we'd like to see them play closer games when they already have like the best shot creator in the league in Jason Tatum right now, other than maybe Luka, like I'm not worried, I guess, about like it. No. It's just hard to find a flaw with this.
Right.
It's hard to find a flaw in the design of the Boston Celtics, especially like before you could say, oh, they didn't have a top 5 player in the league. Jason Tatum is a top 10 player. And can you really win a title with a top 10 player as opposed to a top 5 player? That issue's gone. Jason Tatum has been the best player in the league so far this year. So I don't know. I don't see a flaw here. I think they are the clear number 1 team. But let's go on to their biggest challenger, which we've talked about a bit briefly here already, the Milwaukee Bucks. I would say that like the Celtics for me are like in a tier by themselves in terms of like title favorites. I would say the Bucks are in this next tier, and they might be alone in this next tier for me even. Like I think that they are the clear number 2 even in terms of potential to win the title. What have you been so impressed with so far with the Milwaukee Bucks?
Well, I mean, I think I want to start with Giannis, because we just don't talk about him anymore because he throws up 35, 15, and 7 like it's nothing now. But he's been a two-way monster this year. And Brook Lopez has been spectacular to start the season. Not only is he a Defensive Player of the Year candidate for me, all NBA first team defense, he might be an all-star to me. With the way that he has played at both ends, picking up the slack with no Chris Middleton. Brook Lopez, it's just these good teams. They have these players that are luxuries for other teams. If you say, I've got Drew Holiday, I've got Chris Middleton, and I have Giannis, and oh yeah, I also have maybe the best defensive center in the league. That's quite a luxury. So I think Brook Lopez has been huge for them. I worry about their bench, because this is a team that's going to use its bench, especially in playoffs. Like we already know this. And I don't know that they have enough guys, but overall, what I've seen from them without Middleton has been impressive. And then I like how Middleton has come back and just been able to reintegrate as a playmaker for them. Like that's been huge. Another guy who can handle, another guy who can shoot, another guy who can find other guys. And all of a sudden, I think that they're in the same tier as Boston. I don't put them below Boston.
Yeah, so I don't blame you for that, especially given the fact that we've only seen Chris Middleton for 3 games, right? Getting Chris Middleton back and him having only played 3 games this season, and this team being 18-6 is still wildly impressive. Like that is incredible to me. They have a guy that's a 5-time All-Star at this point, who is certainly in the prime of his career, who has missed all but 10% of this season at this point, and you're now at the point where you are still in the title picture and still have been the clear second best team in the NBA this season. They're currently 5th in net rating plus 5.1, but the big thing has been the defense. And, the defense has slipped over the course of like the last, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. The only thing that it slipped from though, is it was on a like historic pace for the first 20 games of the season, where they were like 7 points better than anyone else defensively per 100 possessions, or whatever ridiculous number it was. Might have been like 5 or something, but they were so dominant through the first quarter of this season defensively. And I think that as they're kind of reintegrating pieces, as they've gotten into the regular portion of the season where, you have to kind of work through the middle part of the season a little bit, I feel like they maybe have taken a slight step back, but the thing is that, they're still a top 13 offense, despite the fact that they haven't had their best shot creator out there. So I totally believe in the Bucks. I think that they are the clear number 2 title favorite right now, in large part because, as you said, we don't talk about Giannis anymore. And Giannis is like,
he's the best player in the world.
Yeah, like I think I'd have to have Jason Tatum as MVP so far, but
that's a different conversation. Yeah,
it's a different conversation. Yeah, I think like Giannis is just the most consistently dominant player on planet Earth, on both ends of the court. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, if you ask me to put money on one possession, that's the guy I want to bet on. Either way, defense or offense. If it's one possession, that's the guy I want to bet on. So, yeah, I think with the Bucks, these numbers right now are like the indicators are a little less important to me. I don't mind the defensive drop off because they have been there. And this is the bias that we kind of develop toward teams that are winners. And so a couple of years ago, before they did it in the playoffs, we didn't believe them. Hey, you win a lot of regular season games, but I need to see it in the playoffs because they would fall apart. And then they adjusted. And now, like, they are a team that is going to win you 55 to 65 games or whatever every year. That's Giannis. He's basically Tim Duncan. You are guaranteed 55 to 65 wins with Giannis every year now. Cool. So now it's more about how you get there. And I think that when we see them trying new stuff now that they have Middleton, that's when I'll start to say, ooh, I like this. I think they're going to be able to do this against Boston. They won't be able to do this again because that's really all it's about. It's only about Boston. They're gonna crush everybody else. Maybe Cleveland can give them a hard time if they play in the second round of the playoffs. But I think everything that they should be doing is working toward how do we handle Boston. Not just their offense, but how do we score against that Boston defense when it's turned all the way up? And so I have them in the first tier because they have Giannis and all the rest of their guys. But the last couple of weeks doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting thing with Milwaukee. So far this season, the Boston Celtics have 2 lineups that have played at least 111 minutes together, 5-man lineups, and they've had, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other lineups that have played at least 27 minutes together so far. The Milwaukee Bucks have one lineup that's played 139 minutes together. Their second most common lineup so far this season has played 28 minutes together, and that's it. So they just really have been forced because of the injuries, because of guys going in and out of the lineup, to do a lot of different things, try a lot of different things, create makeshift situations for a lot of different things, right? Which I think gives them even more upside as they continue to get healthier and healthier and healthier. Ultimately, what I worry about with this team is they're almost going to have to continue to be that battering ram, right? I worry about the way that they are constructed in terms of potentially teams being able to find a mismatch. Like, Javon Carter is playing a ton of minutes for this team so far, right? And Grayson Allen is playing a ton of minutes for this team. As much as I love Javon Carter's defense, he's an unbelievable point of attack defender. I don't want him matched up against Jason Tatum when the game's on the line. He's just a little too small, and Jason's going to shoot over him, right? As hard as he works, as tough as he is, as awesome as that dude is, I don't want that matchup in a tight game at the end of it. And Grayson Allen, again, like, that's a tough one. They're going to have to figure out a situation where, maybe Grayson doesn't have to close, or maybe they move Grayson, because I think Grayson is actually, just given that he's the guy that's on $10 million a year, the guy that could be used in a potential deal to go get someone that's a little bit more versatile defensively, that gives them more lineup flexibility than what they already have. So that's what I would like to see from them. Maybe go out and make a trade that improves their lineup flexibility, that allows them to more consistently move Brook Lopez off the court, and play smaller with Giannis at the 5. Maybe make a move. I mean, like, the guy that makes a lot of sense is Jay Crowder, right? Like, you could theoretically make a case that he makes a lot of sense. I worry that he might be a little bit more cooked than people think based off of last year, but not a bad idea for them. Like, the same idea that saw them go out and acquire PJ Tucker 2 years ago when they won the title. Jay Crowder could be the guy that makes some sense in that regard for them. But I would like to see them I think that's how they move into that top tier for me. Make a move that improves their lineup flexibility and gives them real defensive upside.
Yeah, anything that involves not having Grayson Allen is a good idea to me. That guy starting games for you is that's a bad sign, but you've got these other guys that make it not matter. That would be, I think Wesley Matthews likely is going to be a more useful playoff player for them. Just from his size, right? Like size, and he can shoot it enough, but his size is going to help quite a bit more than Grayson Allen will. I don't know. I think they've got moves to make, and they've got a little bit of flexibility to make them. They're really in a nice spot. I mean, this is, I don't know. I hope that they don't do anything too big, but a Jay Crowder move, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break just for 15 seconds here. And then we're going to be back and we're going to talk about a couple teams in the West now, because everything we've done so far has been in the East. Okay, we're back now. Dave, I'll ask you this question, right? I won't answer it. I'll ask you. Who do you think is the favorite in the West right now after the first third of the season? This has obviously been an incredibly tight Western Conference so far. I believe that there are something like 9 teams or something within 4 games of first place in the West. So when you watch the Western Conference, what team do you think has the best chance to come out of the West at this point?
I'm just going to go with the Warriors because I expect them to figure it out. And it's not because of anything that they've done so far, although the starters have mostly been pretty good. I worry about the bench, but I just look, man, you got Stephen Curry, you got Draymond Green, Clay looks better, Jordan Poole looks better, Kuminga's coming along. I just think, that's not even mentioning Wiggins and Looney, who are super. I mean, Wiggins is an all-star again. So I lean Warriors just because I trust them. But if I'm going non-Warriors, man, I think Memphis has as good a shot as anybody of coming out of the West. They've got all the pieces. They never seem to miss guys when they're out. And the guys that they're missing, it's like Desmond Bane has been out for a few weeks, and they just keep on trucking. And, Ja Morant has been crazy to start the season.
Yeah.
They just got Jaren back. Zaire Williams, they've been missing him for most of the year. It's Memphis to me feels like the one out of, that other group with New Orleans and Phoenix. I just think Memphis, when it comes playoff time, having the experience of the last couple of years, I think that they're ready to be in that Western Conference Finals. And if you get there, you've got a puncher's chance of making the finals. So I'm leaning Memphis right now as of today,
Yeah. So your immediate response was Warriors. So let's talk Warriors first, right? And then we'll move to Memphis, because I think those are 2 really, really good picks. So the Warriors for me are really interesting right now. They figured some things out. Stephen Curry is in the middle of, I don't know, like a top 3 Stephen Curry season ever. It's hard to say, like, this is his best season ever. But he had that incredible season. What was it? The second season he won MVP. That was just like, oh my God, like how the hell is this happening right now? But this season that he's having right now is in conversation with Stephen Curry's MVP seasons. And that is a thing that gives the Warriors an immediate chance every single time they take the court. Ultimately, the things that worry me with the Warriors are almost more regular season issues where they just don't have enough depth. This bench is an absolute nightmare. And they figured some things out with the bench over the course of the last few weeks to minimize the damage more than anything. But even when they were losing, there's a reason that the Curry, Clay, Draymond, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney lineup was still among the best lineups in all of the NBA. They were like a plus 25. I don't know what the numbers are now, but through 20 to 25 games, or 20 games, they were like a plus 25 when they were on the court together. So that's going to give them a real chance in playoff series when you play those guys 40 minutes a night and opposing teams have to figure out how to stop best on best lineups, right? My best against your best. The Warriors' best is going to give them a great chance every single time. the Klay Thompson obituaries that seem to be happening may have been a bit premature. Klay is up to something like 37% on 10 3-pointers a game now. The shooting has come around. The thing that worries me that I think that they could use one more of, even more than an interior defender, is a perimeter defender. Klay's perimeter defense has been, I would say, substantially worse from where it was at his peak, and even a little bit worse than
he started declining before he got hurt, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, right.
He had dropped off defensively before he got the knee injury and the Achilles, but he has looked pretty rough. I actually would rather see him playing more of the 4, guarding less on the perimeter. Like, I think that's his future, is to be, like more of a pick up a bigger guy who, because, Klay has proven to be a pretty substantial post defender. Like, he's stout.
Right.
So I think he can guard 4s pretty easily. At this point, you throw him on watching him when he picks up a point guard is just sad now. He can't do that.
No, he can't do it. And I think this is where, like, Gary Payton II's loss is really, really felt, because they don't really have a guy that they can go to when Klay and Jordan Poole are just getting wrecked right now. I think they hope that guy can be Dante DiVincenzo. Maybe it can be, but I would want to get another option there. I've said this a few times on the podcast. I want to get your take on it. People have talked about moving James Wiseman at this point. I think a guy that would really help the Golden State Warriors is Mason Plumlee. Like, I think that
Mason Plumlee. Don't do this to me.
But like
Mason Plumlee, the fun Warriors by throwing Mason Plumlee out.
Oh, I see. Like, I think he's really smart. He moves the ball at a really high level. I think he's kind of a perfect fit for their offense as much as anything.
I can't do it. I can't watch it.
But think about how much more of an upgrade he would be than James Wiseman is.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. But that's like saying, having a Pinto is an upgrade over having no car.
Yeah, but like,
James Wiseman is a car with no engine. But
would you rather move like Moses Moody and a pick for Jakob Poeltl, or would you rather move James Wiseman for Mason Plumlee? Like,
if that's the only move you can, make, you got to be able to get more than that for Wiseman. And honestly, like, Jakob Poeltl is really damn good, man. That's one of the best
amazing
pick and roll bigs in the league. They don't run any pick and roll, but they wanted to run pick and roll with Wiseman and Poole. Poeltl could come off the bench. You could run all that pick and roll with Poole and Poeltl, who's a lot better than Wiseman, and you could thrive. I don't know if I want to give up Moses Moody for that, but I don't want Plumlee on my team, and that's just me. Like, I don't want to watch that. Don't ruin the Warriors for me with Mason Plumlee.
I think Mason moves the ball. He's super smart. Like, we can talk about the defense, we can talk about whatever, but like,
as long as him now, just never shoot ever. That's the rule. Mason, you can be on the Warriors, but you're never allowed to shoot ever, even layups. You got to pass them. I don't care. And you're never allowed to dribble more than 3 times. Bad things happen when Plumlee's dribble more than 3 times. That's it.
I don't disagree, but I think that his ability to move the ball, his ability to operate and dribble handoffs, his rim running ability, like, there's a lot there that could actually really help the Warriors. So that's kind of like
they get cooked on the other end, though. He would not be able to help him much. Like, he's not very good in drop. You can't switch with him. And the thing is, like, that second unit, one of the low key things about that second unit is they're dumb defensively. This is why they had to start putting Draymond and Wiggins out there with those guys. And like, it's just, they're young, and then Jordan Poole doesn't. I'm not gonna say tries hard 100% of the time, right? But Kuminga's coming along fast.
Yeah, that's the big guy for them.
And I mean, Kuminga's, I don't know if you caught any of that Utah game the other night, but down the stretch, that play where he got the block and it wound up being a flagrant 2, with the whole Jordan Clarkson incident. But before that play actually started, as it was developing, Utah was running multiple screens up top, trying to get Kuminga off the ball. And Kuminga navigated those screens as well as I've seen him do in his entire career to get on Jordan Clarkson. And he got there and he was balanced when he arrived. Jordan Clarkson could not catch him off guard. He stayed in front of him. People wanted to call for a foul, but Clarkson initiated the contact. Kuminga did a really good job of not pushing back. against that contact, but also not getting moved off, which, Jordan Clarkson does that to create the space so he can get that little fadeaway. And Kuminga absorbs the contact and gets the block. And I watched that play, and then he still kept his cool when Jordan Clarkson kind of went a little nuts there. And I'm like, something's happened with Kuminga in the last 25 games. Like something's clicked for him that just wasn't there before. And I think that sort of internal development we were hoping to see with Wiseman, of course. And we expected to see it with Kuminga just right away, but it's there now. And so I don't know if they need to feel rushed or pressured to go out and get a guy to come off the bench as a big. But if they do, please don't do Mason Plumlee.
Look, I think at the end of the day, they need a perimeter player. That they need one more perimeter defender, I think, to really feel good about this. I think you can find those guys. End of the day, I think you can find those guys that make it work. Let's go to the Grizzlies now. The Grizzlies are interesting because they're really coming around defensively with Jaren being back. And this is all without Desmond Bane as well, who's a pretty conscientious, physical, tough defender. I worry a little bit that there are too many ways that you can scheme them. I think that you can still scheme Ja a little bit in the playoffs, just in terms of the shooting. And if you can just kind of crowd the paint, I worry that they have enough where you're genuinely worried about guys shooting outside of Bane. I'm worried about Jaren shooting, but like if the option is collapse the paint so that Ja Morant can't take over, or like let Jaren Jackson shoot, I'm okay kind of letting Jaren Jackson operate away from the basket and shooting. Who are their other guys? Like Dylan Brooks. You're going to have to play Dylan Brooks because you need the defense out there. I'm good with letting Dylan let it go. As much like I respect what Dylan's built in terms of his career, but like I'm good letting him go. And then they have to find a fifth guy. And like, I mean, who do you feel like is their fifth guy right now? Like Zaire Williams, probably Conchar,
we're talking playoff time, right?
Has started
we're
a bunch
talking
of
playoff
minutes.
time.
Yeah.
Do you watch many Grizzlies broadcasts or like
I don't watch. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that like I listen to the broadcasts at all.
Yeah. I normally mute it. But the Grizzlies made a trade to bring in Danny Green just to be on their broadcast booth during the regular season. Come playoff time, Danny Green's that fifth guy. And you know what that means.
Look, he really might be. Like, that's the thing. Like, and if he comes back healthy, he could be really, really helpful for them. Like, incredibly helpful for them.
I mean, that's a guy that he takes care of his body. He's always ready. And if he can go come playoff time, I'm putting my money on Memphis.
I think that they have a real shot. I think they have a real shot because Ja Morant looks like he is. I don't even know if he's taking like another step forward, but he looks like a first, second team All NBA player. I would say something like that.
I think he's taking another step forward, man. I mean,
do you?
There was a level of confidence last year, and I thought it manifested itself in the off the dribble 3-point shooting last year. He started last year just saying, "I'm taking these. You're gonna have to guard me on these," and he's still doing it, and teams still are letting him shoot, which I think is a mistake because when he gets confident, which he's already a supremely confident player, but when he gets confidence in that 3-pointer, now all of a sudden he is drawing you out. And we know that he can get to the paint anyway. Even if you're waiting for him in the paint, he can get in the paint, he can contort his body around you, and he can still get shots up. But when you have to be worried about that 3 ball, now you've played right into his hands. And so I think that he has gotten better at pacing himself in that way. It's not full tilt all the time, but he's still trying to murder everyone that's in his way. He's gotten smarter, and his passing has improved this year. I mean, I don't know if this is something that he spent a lot of time working on. Maybe he watched a lot of film, just trying to figure out where guys like the ball. But it does seem like he's finding shooters cleaner. Not necessarily like making better reads, but he's finding them cleaner.
So the shooting thing is something that's really important. Like he's shooting 38% from 3 so far this season on like 5 attempts per game. And a lot of them come just like going around ball screens, right? He's averaging almost 4 turnovers a game. And it feels like a lot of them come when he's like driving toward the rim and they crowd him and like
he tries to kick it out.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if he's like feeling rushed or what it is, but like, it's definitely on a lot of kickouts. So like, that's why I'm like, I don't even know if I can say like he's taken an enormous leap, just because the turnover problem for me is like, I don't want to say it's like a significant problem. It's certainly not a problem that I think is going to be an issue for him long term as he continues to go throughout his career. But I just worry that like, I don't like in terms of actual impact, the turnover issue kind of offsets the improvement in shooting for me, because it's been a bigger problem this year for him than what I think has kind of gone stated. And this is nitpicking Ja Morant,
sure,
right? Like Ja Morant going from 3.2 to 3.9 turnovers or whatever it is so far. Like that's nitpicking at the end of the day. He's averaging 28 and 8 or 28, 8 and 5 or whatever he's doing right now. He's unbelievable. But when we're talking about, you know, a guy going from being a top 10 player in the league to a top 5 player, which is ultimately what I think Memphis needs him to be, the stuff on the margins matters.
I mean, his usage is up too. You know, no Desmond Bane for extended stretch, no Zaire Williams,
no Jaren for a while,
no Jaren. You know, and so I think that his usage has gone up too. So maybe like the turnovers, it's maybe in line with previous seasons or maybe slightly above. The other thing is, you know, part of it is turnovers that are proactive turnovers are better to me than tentative turnovers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like you're trying to do something, you're attacking the basket, you lose the ball, you're trying to thread the needle on a pass. You know, like I tend to not think that, especially in the regular season, but now I'm putting on the scouting hat, right? Like they're not, those turnovers are more constructive than destructive for me as an analyst. And so with Ja, it's typically, like you said, it's going into traffic. Now, I wish that sometimes he wouldn't rely on his ability to get through the traffic and he would try to find a way around the traffic. But that's stuff that, you know, like, what are you going to tell Ja Morant, one of the best athletes in the NBA? You know,
man. You can't try and go through these trees and like,
because he does this shit all the time. Man. The other day, he's in the paint. There's 4 bodies around him, and he does the wraparound dribble, same hand, and makes a layup. And it's like, well, shit. How do you coach
that? How did he do that?
How do you coach it? I can't tell you not to do something that most people can't even physically consider doing.
I know.
So, so I don't see it as a problem. And plus, you know, he's not a selfish player. If he was a selfish player, like, frankly, Dylan Brooks turnovers bother me a lot more than Ja Morant turnovers.
In Dylan Brooks shot selection turnovers.
Those bother me a lot more. Ja Morant could start pulling up from half court. I don't give a fuck. It's Ja Morant. But Dylan Brooks takes like a 16-footer, and I would have just ripped the rest of my hair out.
Oh my God. Okay. So this next group of teams that I want to talk about are the New Orleans Pelicans, the Phoenix Suns, and the Denver Nuggets. I think those are the 3. Like, the Suns are sort of up and coming. Like, they're still pretty young if you look at the ages of their team, right? Except for Chris Paul. Guys like Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson. Those guys are all like 27 and under. The New Orleans Pelicans, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, basically everyone other than CJ McCollum on that team, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, etc. Super young. Then the Denver Nuggets have been the team that's been, seen as a potential rising force in the Western Conference for years now. And they're finally healthy. They have a full complement, hopefully, assuming Michael Porter gets back soon. But that's not seen as like a long-term, he'll be out for a long time, at least, injury. Of those 3 teams, which one is your favorite to come out of the West?
Man, that's tough. And it's disrespectful to Phoenix because I can't trust them in the playoffs. I'm going to say Denver. Jamal Murray has room for internal improvement, right? Like, he's getting better as we go along. I mentioned that, that game last night was crazy. And I saw him look more confident than I've seen out of him at all this season. The step backs, the fadeaway jumper, which it didn't seem like he had the legs for it the first month and a half of the season. I thought he just looked confident and strong. And the biggest thing was, he hit that game winner last night. And it was a step back over Jeremy Grant. Like, this was it wasn't Nurk who was hanging back. It wasn't, Dame. It was Jeremy Grant. This was like over length from deep and just off a dribble. And so those sorts of moments I think are big for players coming back from injury. And I think Jamal is turning a corner. As he does that, they're going to be better. Plain and simple, right? He's going to be more of a threat. I need to see him turn it around on defense, though. Like the lack of effort generally from the team on the defensive end, I think is striking at times. They give a lot of effort on the offensive end. I mean, Aaron Gordon crashes the offensive glass. I think he's really good at that, finding spots there. But I just need to see more of him on defense. And start, Jokic is one of the issues this year, although I still think he's mostly been fine. It's just that he's not going to elevate your play there. And KCP, I think, has been pretty good. But, you just need a little bit more fight from Jamal Murray and Michael Porter when he comes back. And I don't know if I'm going to trust that defense in the playoffs, but out of those three teams, I just think that they have, they have an opportunity for a higher ceiling if Jamal is back to the way he looked before he was hurt.
So Jokic is shooting like 32% from three so far this year, but I don't know if people have recognized just how incredibly filthy he has been as a creator in the mid-range so far. He is shooting 66% between 3 and 10 feet. That's like an outrageous number. He's shooting 50% between 10 and 16 feet. He's shooting 77% between 16 feet and the 3-point line. He has become like Dirk light basically this season, except with the passing. Like this is something that I keep noting and that I think like Mavs fans get super upset about. Like Nikola Jokic is like elevated Dirk in terms of just the passing that he also brings. He is that good of a mid-range shooter. He has the ability to step out to three the same way Dirk did. And oh, by the way, he is also like one of the 3 best passers in the NBA. You basically have made Dirk one of the 3 best passers in the NBA. That's who Nikola Jokic is.
I can't name a better high post facilitator than Jokic. And now that high post jumper, it's not even a jumper, that little set shot, the Sombar shuffle when he hits that. You have to guard that.
Look at the king. He's on your shirt. Man.
Yeah. You have to shout out to DNVR. That's really, really good Nuggets coverage. They're fun guys too. But when you have to guard that so tight, he's opened up the passing lanes for himself. It's similar to what Luka did by committing to the mid-range in previous seasons. He got good at it, and then now the defense, that's not the shot they want to give up anymore. And so dunker spot opens up, which for Jokic, that means a lot of Aaron Gordon. The corners open up, which Michael Porter and KCP should be feasting on. The guy offensively, there are no holes in his game. There's not a single hole, because he also is one of 2 guys you can give the ball to and just say, go make me a bucket without moving more than 5 feet. Just get in the paint, get on the block, and make me a basket. Like he's a basket weaver is what he is.
Yeah.
He sits in one place. He's going to make you a bucket.
So the team I actually like most of these 3 is New Orleans. And I think New Orleans is going to be a significant problem for teams in the playoffs in a way that people haven't really recognized yet. In a similar way to how Boston is a real problem for teams in the playoffs, New Orleans just doesn't have Jason Tatum yet, right? Like they have Brandon Ingram, who is great. They have Zion Williamson, who is great. Zion is certainly like a top 15, maybe top 10, given the way that things are going throughout the course of this season, continuing player in the league. But Jason is a top 3 player. Like to me, though, when I look at the Pelicans, they have the ability to have all sorts of crazy lineup versatility. You can go super small with Alvarado and CJ McCollum, and then you can throw out Zion at the 5 with Brandon Ingram and one of Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. You can go super big and play like Jonas, Larry Nance, Zion if you have to. You can go one of those 2 with Zion and like a more normal lineup. Larry Nance is switchable as a 5-man, so you can switch everything if you have to. The ability to have Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, both of whom are between 6'7" and 6'9", and be able to play them anywhere from the 2 through the 4, gives you all sorts of lineup versatility. I think that this team is going to be able to cause matchup-based issues or adjust to what other teams try to present in terms of matchup-based issues at such a real level. Like, this team caused the Suns a lot of problems last year in the playoffs. They now have Zion Williamson on top of that. So they are going to cause even more problems in the playoffs, I think. Like, this is a real team that I think people aren't quite recognizing. Like, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know if they're going to get out of the West, but I think they're the team that can cause Boston the most problems out of any other team in the West. Just with their lineup versatility, their ability to mix and match guys, I think that they're the team that can match up best with what Boston presents other teams. And again, that's not to say they're the favorite to come out of the West. I think this is a bloodbath free-for-all, basically. But if they could be so lucky as to come out of the West and Boston is sitting there, they're the team that I think is most interesting in that matchup.
You're not wrong that they have versatility, and it's more of a, we talked about them on Nerder this week. They could come out of the West. Totally. I can see the path. Larry Nance is their small ball 5. That's a thing. That's a real thing. Defensively, he's great coming from the help side, which is exactly the way that they want to play. Offensively, the ball never gets stuck when he's out there. Him and Alvarado even have some good 2-man chemistry, which is very interesting. Is that game where Alvarado hit 8 of 11 threes. It was like some Draymond Steph Curry stuff with him and Alvarado, and I really liked that. But he's a player who he is a good fit with a lot of guys because he's selfless, he sets screens, he moves the ball and things. He opens up a lot for them. The Valanciunas thing may be a problem for them. There are teams that he will not be able to play against, obviously, but there are some non-obvious ones where he can't play. He can't play against Memphis. He just can't.
No, not when Steven Adams is not out there. And they've been
even when Steven Adams is out there.
Steven Adams.
Yeah, Steven Adams literally, he obliterates that matchup. And then, but unfortunately he does too good of a job because when they bench Valanciunas, the Pelicans get better, especially against Memphis. So, and I think Valanciunas has been down a little bit this year anyway. But the Larry Nance,
what the sneaky important thing about Jonas is, though? This team doesn't have, and this is something that hopefully will change when Brandon Ingram comes back and they have CJ, improves the shot maker. Like, I think CJ's actually been okay this year. It's just that the shooting hasn't fallen. Yeah. Like, he has a 3-to-1 assist turnover ratio. He's done a pretty good job running the show when he's been out there in like their share the ball kind of offense. It's more that the shot just hasn't fallen, and that'll happen for CJ. With Brandon Ingram out, it's been very important to have Jonas around and just throw him the ball on the block to be able to create something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And I worry that they need that more than you would like. Having said that, the thing that's interesting about them is we just haven't seen Brandon Ingram and Zion play a ton together. Theoretically, it should be awesome and it should work. And it should be like, we have this incredible shot creator. We have another guy in Zion that can like just be a mismatch dynamic force. Like, having two guys that can just be dynamic mismatch hunters and creators is what Boston has in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, right? But I just want to see it. You know what I mean? On paper, it works great, and I'm 100% in. It's just I want to see it before, like, I say they're the favorite to come out of the West.
Yeah. I mean, all these young teams, man. I mean, like, we can talk about Cleveland the same way, right?
They're next for this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah. But I think that the prove it thing, and by the way, saying this about a young team, I don't mean it in the same disrespectful way I mean when I talk about the Phoenix Suns, right? Phoenix Suns need to prove it because now, okay, we've seen that in the regular season. You guys can produce and manufacture wins in the regular season. You're a really good regular season team. Phoenix, show me in the playoffs, right? They should be playing around and figuring things out for the playoffs. With the Pelicans, it's more, this is normal. It's experience, and you're going to grow. But I want to see it in the playoffs just to make sure it's sustainable. I believe in Willie Green as a coach, though. I think that they're going to be ready. I think they're getting to this. no matter where they are in the seeding, and I think they're going to be probably top 4, actually. They're definitely getting the second round, and a conference finals, if they made it there, would not be shocked.
The thing with the Suns is I think they have proven it in the playoffs. Like, they made the NBA finals 2 years ago, right?
Okay.
But they haven't proven it in the finals or in the playoffs with this iteration of Chris Paul. Chris Paul has been not great so far this year. And that is something that I think has flown under the radar. They've been really good in spite of the fact that Chris Paul has not been awesome. And in spite of the fact that DeAndre Ayton has taken a bit of a step back defensively. And they've done it in part because Devin Booker has been unbelievable and should be on everyone's, like, on the top 5 of everyone's MVP list right now, I think. But I worry about what that looks like in the playoffs if teams can just collapse on Devin Booker constantly and Chris Paul can't present that second perimeter option in the way that they need it. Like, is Chris Paul kind of trying to take it a little bit easier in the regular season, knowing that he has like 1 or 2 big playoff pushes left? Or is he diminished in some way? That's the big question for me about Phoenix. If he's diminished, they're fucked. Like, they are not deep enough to manage without Chris Paul being Chris Paul. If he isn't diminished, then they still have a real shot to come out of the West. And I think that we don't know the answer to that yet.
I mean, he's not shooting the ball, right? Yeah. He's not shooting the ball well. And this is now like 2 seasons in a row where he's kind of taken a downturn, not just in attempts, but I mean, not just in percentage, but also in attempts. Right?
That's the big number.
Because shooters will let you know if they can shoot or not. Players let you know if they can play or not. Chris Paul not wanting to take over games at all, that's a bad sign. And you know, we can all do this thing that we always do. Oh, well, you know, he's saving himself for the playoffs. I don't know that. I know he's not very good right now, and they've looked better at times with Campaign out there. And Campaign is not half the player Chris Paul is under usual circumstances, but guys can turn up washed from one season to the next, sometimes from 1 month to the next. So if you're telling me Chris Paul's done, that kind of tracks, man. I mean, you look at his age, you look at the miles that he's got on him, you look at his size, and any sort of slippage, it's going to directly interfere with his effectiveness on the basketball court. Yeah. Couple that with the fact that he's shooting like 25% from 3 on low volume now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's washed.
It's possible. It's possible.
It is. Maybe
it's a very real possible thing. Yeah.
Maybe he's playing possum, but he's also 37 years old. And in this reality, man, like, we get old. It's unfortunate, but we do age. And unless he's on some really good stuff that we don't know about, it shouldn't surprise anybody that a 37-year-old can't hang with these, you know, 25 to 28-year-old super freak athletes that are all 6'7", especially when he's 5'10". So, you know, I hope he's not washed, man. I would like to see a good Chris Paul run in the playoffs this year before it's all said and done. I think it's more fun if the Suns are pretty good. I want them to win a bunch of games and be good.
Yeah. Let's go to the East again now, because now we're into that second tier of the Eastern Conference. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I think, are really interesting. The Brooklyn Nets are 14-12, and they have Kevin Durant on their team. So absolutely every chance to make a run in the playoffs, in my opinion. I don't really know what to do with like teams like the Hawks and the Heat. I don't really know that we can put them in this conversation. And then the Philadelphia 76ers just haven't been healthy. And they have Doc Rivers as their coach, so that gives me zero faith. But like, I mean, like the other contenders in the East, I feel like this is a Boston-Milwaukee show. I feel like the East is deeper than it's ever been. But the Cavs are like really the one team that I look at that, like, if Donovan Mitchell keeps going 53, 44, 91 or whatever he's shooting right now, then yeah, great. They might have a shot.
I'll slide Philly into the conversation with Cleveland. You know, I'll give them that benefit of the doubt. Joel Embiid is just too good for me to, you know, say that I don't know what they're going to be when it comes playoff time. I do think that they're a pretty good team. I just trust Cleveland more. I think when you've got the sort of defense that they have in the interior, And their scheme has been really good. You know, they're running teams off the 3-point line. Their bigs are pretty mobile. I mean, Jared Allen is ridiculous. You see the difference he makes when he's in and out of the lineup.
Yeah.
And then given what Donovan Mitchell's doing, we're overlooking just how good Darius Garland has been playing next to him. And because we haven't seen it a ton, you know, it's still pretty new, that pairing. They can play however you want to play. And the pieces that they're missing are the pieces that every team is missing. Like they could use a high level wing. That's, you know, pretty obvious when you look at their team. So basically the only thing they're missing is a high level wing. I think Dean Wade is nice, but when if missing Dean Wade is more of an organizational problem than a basketball problem. You know, your seventh or eighth guy missing extended time shouldn't stress you out in the way that it feels like the Cavs are going to be a little taxed without him. So, but again, this is how team building goes. They just haven't gotten there yet. They haven't had the opportunity. I think Karis LeVert, it's not his fault. But he's not able to fulfill the role that they need him to fill. Same with Isaac Okoro. He just can't score enough. You know, you need a guy who's going to be able to stick open shots, especially playing on the wing there. Cedi Osman's been fine. Dean Wade's been fine. But I just don't trust them enough, you know, when it comes time to, hey, you need to make this shot, but also we need you to go guard that guy on the other end. They don't have that guy.
Yeah. I agree with that totally. And I think that's like their cataclysmic flaw against.
If they had Andrew Wiggins, man, they'd win the title.
I think they'd have a real shot. Certainly. Yeah. Andrew Wiggins is like the exact kind of guy they need. Someone that can play a role, create an occasional shot in the mid range, defend, like, and be switchable defensively. Like the fact that they're going to have to play Isaac Okoro probably against Boston in a series because they just need like bodies that can manage Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They don't have that right now. Like one of them would have to be Evan Mobley, but like I don't trust Jared Allen against Jason Tatum as good as Jared Allen has been. I don't trust Jared Allen against Jaylen Brown as good as Jared Allen has been. And Jared Allen's been a top 10 defender in the NBA this year so far. So like it's a problem that they don't have wings in the one specific matchup that they need to be able to win, to be able to get to the next level. So when I look at Cleveland, you got to go out and go get a wing. Like Jay Crowder is, again, like a guy that could make sense for them just for minutes against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. You need someone that can like eat up minutes against those guys. Because otherwise, like against Boston, the thing that Boston does super well defensively is they will stick Robert Williams on Isaac Okoro and just say, don't guard him, clog up the paint, and cause all sorts of issues for the opposing team. They absolutely are superb at not guarding guys that they don't have to guard. Some teams do it, some teams don't. And Boston will just stick their best defender on Cleveland's worst player offensively and say, okay,
and they'll live.
You have the runway. Go ahead.
They'll live with him taking 10 threes a game. Even if he hits 5 out of 10 one game, they'll live with that because the math is just correct on that move. And that's the thing. That's why Dean Wade is a nice player, but probably a little bit too important for them. Cedi Osman not quite up to the task. Although I think in a playoff series against Boston, Cedi might be their best option.
He'd have to play.
He's gonna be guarding Jason Tatum.
I think Dean Wade will be guarding Jason Tatum. Like that's just a tough matchup for Cleveland. But let's go to Philly now. Philly.
Nobody's guarding Jason Tatum. Let's just throw that out there now. Ain't nobody guarding Jason Tatum. Or you're standing in front of Jason Tatum in the basket. Like you're standing between those two, but you're just in the way. Like he's going around you, he's going over you. What he's doing right now is ridiculous.
Let's go to Philly. Philly has Doc Rivers as their coach, so I almost just want to eliminate them. Joel Embiid is so good.
I often think about what this team could look like with a creative coach, right?
I know.
You have wonderful guards, and I'm not even mentioning James Harden in this, okay? I'm going to keep James Harden to the side because I actually have this idea with James Harden, and it starts with what he did in Brooklyn last year. But you have Milton and Melton, the Milton brothers, No I, no E. Those two guys are amazing. Tyrese Maxey's awesome. So you have like this guard play that not a lot of teams can match, and especially DeAnthony Melton with the way he defends.
Yep.
You've got Joel Embiid, who, when he touches the ball in the post, good things happen for your team inside and out.
Yep.
Tobias Harris, a guy you could say, please play some bully ball for us. We need a couple buckets. We need to give the big man a break. You got Paul
and happy
Reed.
To play without the ball as well. Yep.
Paul Reed coming off the bench, runs the floor well, does everything you ask of him. Just solid team. This should be easy to figure out, man. And I look at what James Harden did in Brooklyn last year, where for the first 3 quarters of the game, man, he was out there making everybody better. Let me make it easy for you guys. I'm going to give you the ball. I'm going to tee it up, move a little bit off the ball. And I think he could do this stuff for 3 quarters and just take it easy. And then he could do the James Harden thing for the 4th quarter and just be the closer for them. You can ride Joel Embiid and let Joel facilitate out of the post, finding shooters, relocate. You know, James Harden giving up the ball and relocating, that works with Joel Embiid. We've seen it a couple of times. And then you can have Harden come in, be that closer, that 4th quarter guy, and grind the game out. And just you could crush that way. But you would have to, obviously, you got to adjust your system just a little bit for these guys. But that's not what we get. That's not our lot in life, Sam. We don't have, you know, they've got Doc, and
that was going to be my question.
Like, Doc is really, really great at coaching Tobias Harris. He's amazing at it. He's the best Tobias Harris coach ever.
Best coach for your 4th best player. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah. So like you mentioned Joel facilitating out of the post, right? Like, I don't really trust him to do that. Like, the turnover number has gone up again. He's up over 4 turnovers a game. I don't think he reads double teams all that well right now. I think you just need him to be a scorer on the block. And I think the teams will just try and crowd him. And he's so good that he can figure it out.
When was the last time someone cut toward the basket on a Joel Embiid double team? This is
I don't disagree, but
there's systemic problems at play here.
Again, this is our lot in life. Like, it's Doc Rivers. I mean, like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
So like, if they're gonna fire Doc, if you're gonna fire Doc mid-season and hand it over to someone, I'm in. Great team, but I have zero faith that Doc Rivers is gonna figure it out. Over many years now of watching Doc Rivers try to coach his way out of a paper bag in the playoffs. Like, I'm good.
Are they a first round out to you? I know you love when I put you on the spot.
No. I love it.
If they were a first round out, it wouldn't shock me. I can say that. Like, I would not be surprised if, you know what I mean? It could be a 50-50. I don't expect them to make it out of the second round for sure.
What, they'd be like the 7 seed right now? I mean, they would definitely lose to Boston or Milwaukee. I think they would probably beat Brooklyn just because I think Joel is particularly dominant in that series. Look, I don't know if they're a first round out just because.
I mean, the matchup matters so much for them.
Yeah. But like,
that says a lot to me, right? This should be a team that's matchup proof to a certain degree.
Like, Boston and Milwaukee have been built to cause problems for Joel Embiid because they have so many bigs that they can throw at Joel and at least like just force him in some way, as good as Joel is, top 10 player in the league, unbelievable player, to force him into harder shots. And they have a lot of bodies they can throw at him. And then on top of it, they're just better than you on the perimeter. So like, definitely a second round out. I know that. Could be real potential to be a first round out. And frankly, I hope that they are a first round out because I think that would force them to make the coaching change. Like, I hope for Philadelphia fans that if they are not going to just on their own mid-season figure out that Doc Rivers is not the coach for this team, then I hope that they get knocked out because I want Philadelphia fans to be happy and I want them to realize Doc Rivers is not the coach for this group. Like, help out Philly fans is what I'm saying. Come on, guys.
We can't talk about the Sixers on Nerder for the most part now because that's where we want to start.
Doc, like, it's so abundantly clear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is not the coach for this team. He is not a modern enough offensive mind to figure out how to make this work with Joel Embiid and all of these awesome perimeter players that they have. Okay, the last section here is just going to be like the if things go right teams. And this is where the Clippers and Lakers fit in, I think. The Clippers have every chance to come out of the West if they are 100% healthy. Do we trust that they're going to be 100% healthy?
Never. No. And I actually don't know that they have every chance. I don't think
I think they're a flawed team. Yeah. I think they're a more flawed team than people think.
And this is just, let's just say Kawhi's at 100% come playoff time. Let's say Paul George is at 100% come playoff time. I think Zubac is a good player. I don't like the rest of their team, honestly. Like their guard play has been subpar. Reggie Jackson has not been good to me this year. John Wall has been okay, shown some flashes, but overall, like not totally effective. Like he's a good bench player, I guess. I just don't know that they've got the punch. Like they've got tons of bodies, and that was something we said coming in, but it all rests on Kawhi being Kawhi and Paul George being Paul George. And I just don't think those guys so far have shown that they're the rising tide that we expected them to be. You know, and part of that, look, I think Ty Lue is a really, really great coach, not just a good one, a great coach, especially in-game coaching, making adjustments from half to half. End of games, he really is an excellent strategist. They don't run any fucking offense. They get no easy buckets. Everything is beat your man and make a play. Dude, there's only so far you can get in the NBA doing that because the teams, the defense is going to be a team game no matter what. It's always a team game. So you have an individual trying to break down a defense in 2022. You may get somewhere, but you're not getting everywhere. You know, Ja Morant can get into the paint at will. Who on the Clippers is getting into the paint? Paul George is about it. And even when he does, look at who he's having to give the ball up to.
So I was having a conversation with someone that works on the team side earlier this week. And I was trying, the place we came down on the Clippers was basically they don't get enough easy offense because they don't put enough pressure on the basket and don't put enough pressure on the paint. And on top of it, they don't get enough ball movement. So we were trying to figure out like, what are the moves they could make to get enough ball movement and to like make it work. And my idea was like, I wonder if they could be in the mix. Like, let's say Chicago blows this thing up, right? Lonzo Ball is probably not going to be like a particularly attractive asset just due to the injury questions, right? Mm-hmm. Not to say he's a bad player. I think Lonzo's a really great player, but I just wonder if teams are going to have some real hesitancy on taking on that money. Is there a chance that the Clippers won't care about the money. They won't care about taking on the risk. They will just say, if we think this is the guy that really helps us, we will do it. I actually think Lonzo they don't have any connectors. The Clippers do not have any connective pieces. Lonzo is like an expert connector piece. And I wonder if they would be willing to take the risk to try and take on that money and give it a shot with Lonzo. Because if Lonzo's healthy, he's in some ways exactly what they need, a guy who can space the floor, an unbelievable, unselfish creator. The one thing that he doesn't do is put a ton of pressure on the basket, but I think that he helps everything else that they don't do well right now.
If he was part of a bigger move, I think that makes a lot of sense. I still think they need an upgrade at the one or whatever you want to call it, right? Yeah. Their point of attack guards are they're not getting it done defensively, and offensively, no one's scared of them. You know, Reggie Jackson, again, like when he's hot, it's great, but man, he hasn't been hot this season at all. Yeah. So, you know, what do you do there? I think if you can add Lonzo, that's great, but it doesn't solve the other initiation problem that they've got. And then let's just be honest, the health thing is a real concern for them.
It is.
Kawhi's played 7 games this year.
It's a problem.
Like, what are your expectations? Your best player has played 7 games, can't play back-to-backs.
And like, let's be clear about this too, by the way, has not been like Kawhi level.
He's not Kawhi either.
Like he's shooting 40% from the field and shooting 17% from three. Like the burst is not there. The strength is there. Like he can get where he wants. He's just not making shots because he can't really separate at this point. Yeah. Look, if he can get that back, they're in the mix, but like we need to see Kawhi at 100%, I think, to like really feel like they're in the mix.
Are we ever going to see Kawhi at 100%?
That's the thing. I don't know. I really don't.
He has a degenerative condition in a quadricep, right? Like the quadricep tendon that still exists, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then coming back from the knee, I mean, he doesn't look like himself, which, granted, we should all expect post All-Stars when we can really start judging him physically.
Yeah.
But they are shorthanded now because they don't have their best player, period. And even when he's out there, they don't have him. Yeah. Because you can't rely on him the same way. So they're a weird team to me. And it's just like, it's pretty bad luck because I think from a roster construction, it's not bad. They did the stuff that you're kind of supposed to do. It's just that it's not really working out. And I will pin a lot of that on the coaching staff because there is no offense. And I guess, you can only put that on the coaching staff so far because the players have to buy into an offense too. So, but they don't get anything easy, man. Nothing.
Yeah. To me, it's more the roster building because like they built a theoretically modern team.
Well, that's
without like actually understanding, free throws are very easy. Right. And ball movement and like getting, live dribble kickouts, like creates more efficient shots. Right. Like, they built a modern team in terms of like being able to go big and having lineup versatility and being able to go small. But the way those players work on the court in concert with one another doesn't actually work in a modern atmosphere. Let's go to the Lakers now. Like speaking of a disaster show that looks like a mess a lot of the time. Anthony Davis, if Anthony Davis is going to play at this level and they have LeBron James, we have to have the conversation about the Lakers in a title contention thing because they could make a trade that accentuates Anthony Davis and accentuates LeBron James. They're nowhere near this conversation right now. Is there a move that they could make that makes you believe that they could actually get into this mix?
I don't think so. I mean, even the Hield and Turner move that's been out there since the summer, I just don't know. Number one, I don't know that Indiana should trade those guys, especially not Turner. Turner's young, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't fit with your guys, unless Turner just needs to go. And in which case, all right, yeah, you do it.
Well, if he tells you I'm not re-signing,
exactly,
like, you need to sit down with him in February and say, look, Miles, we want to keep you. What is your interest in re-signing?
It would be the first time that they've ever wanted to keep him, though. See, this is the problem, man. They signed this guy, and immediately his name is in every trade rumor. He's on the trade block. Yeah. They signed Domantas Sabonis, and everyone knew that internally they valued Sabonis more than they valued Turner because that shit was everywhere. So like if he didn't want to be there, I don't blame him. So I think that's a conversation you got to have. But I like Miles with those guards in particular, man. I think that's a great matchup for them. But I don't know that Hield and Turner. Yeah, Hield adds shooting, and Turner certainly will help. Take some of the load off Davis as far as the defense goes. But I think Anthony Davis at the 5 and LeBron at the 4 is their best. Even if you add Turner, I think you're best with those guys. And then, I would focus on the shooting. So if you can get Hield, try to do that. If you can, if there's another shooter floating around out there that you might be able to get, hell, maybe they could kick the tires on Jay Crowder, who, he can play defense and he will at least get the shots up, which is half the battle. I think Austin Reeves has been nice, so he's going to stay in the rotation. But yeah, I'm not ready to put the Lakers a trade away, right? I think that they'd be multiple moves away.
If they were able to utilize the Russ contract to get Buddy Hield, Eric Gordon, because the Pacers have a crazy amount of cap space, right? Like that they can just accept this Russ contract into. If they were able to get Buddy Hield, Eric Gordon, and like someone else from some other team, make it a 4-way trade where like Russ goes into the cap space and then you like finagle it somehow, right? Maybe it's like Josh Richardson or something from the Spurs, right? To go get more perimeter defense. I think that they would have a real shot. I can't exclude them from the conversation of title contenders when they have Anthony Davis playing at this level. Right. Like, if he is going to keep playing at this level.
LeBron is playing at the level he's playing at, though.
Yeah, I mean, I just assume that LeBron can turn it on for the playoffs. Maybe that's wrong of me, but like it's LeBron, and I refuse to act like he's dead until he like has retired and his career is over.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, honestly, if we were looking back in history, that kind of is how it ought to go. This is like all those years of everyone picking the Spurs to miss the playoffs, and then finally we all stopped. We were like, no, they're just making the playoffs in perpetuity. With LeBron, I think it's more about like, you got to save his legs for the playoffs, right? Like they need a little bit more juice for the regular season to save him for the playoffs. But I just don't know. I don't know how good they are right now. A lot of this run, and even with
they're bad Davis, right now, I think.
Yeah, but even with Anthony Davis putting up the numbers that he's put up recently, like they have been playing mostly bad teams. They did have that good win against the Bucks, and I thought that they looked good doing that. They don't shoot enough threes. That's one fundamental problem, but they are finding ways to get second chance opportunities, and I do believe in their defense. I don't know. I don't think anybody is scared of that team. I don't think they should be. No, not as currently constructed. But if they could get Eric Gordon and Buddy Hield, I mean, that's two guys that are going to be in their rotation. And that means you can take out some guys who are hurting them actively, like Pat Beverly is actively hurting them. You know, Russ
Dennis Schroeder is not
Dennis
like,
Schroeder
could you do like,
although
Russ, could you do like Pat Beverly and like a pick swap with the Rockets for Eric Gordon? Like, is that something the Rockets would consider, a 28 pick swap? I don't know.
28 pick swap. That's a lot of value.
I agree, but
now the pick swap would, So if they traded 27 and did a 28 pick swap, man, that's tricky.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd do all that. I mean, you'd have to though if you're getting all these guys.
If you're making these sorts of, but if you're giving up, if you're basically saying at the end of this decade, we better be able to keep the free agency going, right? You banking on that? Like LeBron's not going to be around in 2028, I'm assuming.
Or he'll be in Vegas running the show there.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to be playing basketball for the LA Lakers in 2028.
Yeah.
So, and if he was, wow, they're probably pretty bad. I just don't know, man. Like, I think ultimately you got to think about as the people running the team, you have to say, are we willing to be awful for a few years with no hope at the end of the decade in order to maybe they're not winning a title no matter what move they make, period. Unless you can get Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins, you're not winning the title. But maybe you can make a conference finals run. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
I don't know.
They're getting blasted they're going to get blasted by the Bucks or the Celtics in the finals if they make it. Right. So, if the thing is you make that move because you think you can win a title, if you can get to the finals, I guess it's worth it, right? Like you're giving yourself a chance, but you're going to get blasted in the finals by either.
They definitely get blasted by the Celtics. I mean, they just beat the Bucks, but like I still think they probably lose that in 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree. Okay, Dave, we're gonna get out of here. Tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on with your life. Tell the people anything you want to tell them.
Telling
anything
shit about my life. I'm not telling anybody about my life, man. No. Like as far as the general public is concerned, all I do is eat, sleep, drink, and breathe basketball. That's it. That's all anybody gets to know. But all of my eating, sleeping, drinking, and breathing basketball is exclusively at The Athletic. So you can find me there. The Athletic NBA show. I'm on every damn show at this point. So,
Davis,
go check me out.
He's the best. Okay.
I'm not the best.
I'm in the middle of writing draft
I'm just on the show.
Stuff. You're just on the show, I guess.
That's it.
Yeah. You host the shows a lot too. So, multiple responsibilities. But I'm in the middle of draft guide stuff. So like, I don't know what I'm going to have coming this week coming up. I'll have a mock draft before the end of the year. I would venture a mock or a top 100 board. I'm not sure yet. But keep it locked at The Athletic. You're going to get all of the great shows. Go subscribe to the Game Theory podcast on YouTube, Game Theory podcast with Sam Cini. Go subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever podcasting app you use. We'll be back on Sunday night, Monday morning with Adam Spinella to break down a few NBA draft things after we took last week off. Until next time, though, we will talk soon.